Today, we are thrilled to welcome Bella Humphries, a comedian, actor, and writer from Swindon. Bella is also an incredible advocate for PMDD, using her platform to raise awareness of this often misunderstood condition. In 2024, she debuted her hit show Square Peg at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, where it received widespread acclaim and earned her a nomination for Best Newcomer at the Edinburgh ISH Comedy Awards. Since then, she's been touring the show across the UK and has also hosted a show called Bleeding Hell on BBC Radio Wales, where she's opened up about her personal struggles with PMDD. So we're so excited to have her here with us today for the Monthly Truth. Welcome, Bella.
Hiya, thanks. Thanks
How
for
are you
having
doing? You
me.
okay?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. I'm in my follicular phase, so I'm feeling pretty good, which is nice.
Love that, love that. Very jealous. I'm currently in the luteal, so stringing a sentence together is interesting, basically. But love that for you because that's my favourite phase.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
It's great. You can achieve
It's
anything in
a really
that
good
phase.
bit.
It is. It is. It's great. You wake up and you're like, I can literally do anything.
Yeah, I'm like, imagine what I could do if I felt like this all the time. I'd be
You absolutely can.
unstoppable.
It's a bit scary, to be honest.
I know.
Dread to think. But so actually that kind of is quite fitting for my first question. And I'm going to start asking everyone this who comes onto the Monthly Truth. But in just a few words, how would you describe PMDD?
An absolute nightmare,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah, it's really hard to explain, and I think I try and what I say in my show is I try and I sort of it's not a few words, it's in many words. It's in a full hour. But I say, like, if you don't know what it's like, it's like, imagine going on like a week to 10-day long bender where you're just kind of like setting your life on fire.
I love that. Bang on.
And you just feel like, I don't know how you feel, but I personally feel like I'm watching myself from above, and it's like I've got amnesia and I've forgotten that I have a good life.
Yes. It is like having amnesia though, because you do when you're in that phase, you're so convinced that your life is just terrible and that nothing's going to be okay ever again. And you forget that actually, like, your life's pretty good when you're feeling it.
Yeah, this is the thing, and like I forget that I like things. Like I feel like I don't want to do anything, and I forget, that I
Mhm.
have, good friends and an amazing family, and a really quite, objectively brilliant life compared to a lot of people. And yeah, it's really just I really try and not feel too I try not to feel too sad about it, but honestly, I do feel like quite robbed a lot of the time.
Yeah, I completely resonate with that. I think because I mean, I don't know about you, my luteal's probably like 2 weeks. So,
Yeah, mine's 2 weeks. I mean,
so,
there was a point it was 18 days long.
and that's, well, 18 days is more, but it's half your life.
Yeah.
2 weeks a month, it's half your life. It's really debilitating. So I think you're right. You bang on with saying it's been robbed. And, PMDD is brutal. It really is. But you've managed to turn it into comedy. And was that always the plan, or did it kind of just happen?
Oh God, that was never the plan. I mean, I started doing comedy way, way before I realized I had PMDD. I've always, like, I've had PMDD for, oh God, well, since I was 14. So, like, since I had my first period. So that's what now, nearly 17 years. But so I've kind of had it longer than I haven't. I don't remember, and I also don't remember not having it really, because, like, really, I don't remember like loads from before I was
Oh,
14. I
yeah.
remember, like, obviously I do remember stuff, but it's, most of this I've always kind of felt like this, I think. And yeah, so I just kind of I remember speaking to I kind of when I first got it was just before I got diagnosed, and I was kind of thinking about this is what it was, and it was like I was in the beginning stages of being diagnosed. And I remember I was seeing like a life coach, and she just said to me, what a brilliant idea it would be to take back some of the power that it has over me and maybe talk about it on stage. I started talking about it on stage, and honestly, just everything changed for me personally, professionally. It made me feel more myself on stage, and it made me realize that I can talk about anything and make it, one, funny, but two, also something that people are interested in hearing about. And also, it made me, in my personal life, it made me feel less alone and less embarrassed. And the more I talked about it, the more comfortable I felt with it.
That's really powerful, and I think, I don't know, I wonder if before you started talking about it in your work, like, would you have these discussions with your friends, or was this kind of your way of saying, okay, this is what I've got and this is how I'm going to deal with it, this is how I'm going to cope with it?
Yeah, it was kind of that, because like I had barely told anybody when I got diagnosed. Like, I know my partner at the time, he knew because he lived with me and he was kind of, part of the process of me getting him diagnosed. Like, I told my family, not huge amounts, but I do, I told them about it, and it's something that they didn't know about, and so they had to go off and research. I
Mhm.
kind of mentioned it to a few people, but I hadn't really talked about it, even like, and to the point where when I made the first Bleeding Hell, which is about my experience of PMDD, I did have to kind of let people know. I remember because I knew it was when it was coming out in I think it was the June,
Mm.
2023. I did a post for PMD Awareness Month in the April, just being like, guys, you may or may not know this about me. I've got PMDD. This is what it is. X, Y, and Z. And that was the first time I'd kind of publicly, sort of online, kind of to my friends and stuff, said, this is what I've got, because I knew that the documentary was going to come out and I didn't want it to be a shock or a surprise if
Mhm.
people listened to it and they'd be like, whoa, because it was, quite heavy at times. Um, and it was incredibly honest. And yeah, so it was definitely the first time that I'd kind of really talked about it much at all. And now you can't stop me.
Can't shut you up I'm the exact same. As soon as I
Oh, I talk about
found my voice, God, someone stop me. But I think
honestly.
that's really powerful, though. I think it's like, it's validating, and just, God, I can just picture how many people will have listened to your shows, never heard of it, but resonate with it, and it will have helped them massively. So I think there's something really powerful of using your voice and comedy to help explain it for people that, can't explain it. And you've said that, you've had to be brutally honest with the condition in your show, Bleeding Hell. Have you had any surprising reactions from listeners, good or bad?
Yeah, I've had loads of surprising reactions actually. Generally all good, which is amazing. And
Mm.
I mean, realistically, I'm sure there's people out there that didn't like it, and that's fine. Um, I'm not really like very well known at all, so I think, I don't have heaps of people kind of finding me online and being mean. Um, I did during the Fringe, to be fair, actually, but that was a different issue.
Wow.
But for Bleeding Hell, like the most surprising ones I got was like, like I had a lot of men message me and say, thank you so much for talking about it. Like, my partner has this, or I think my partner has this. Like, I had no idea. And
Wow.
it was the same when I've done my show as well. I've had so many men come up to me and just say, wow, I never knew anything about this. I've learned something. I found it interesting and I found it funny, which is just, it was so nice, because I was so panicky and so worried
Yeah.
that, people would hate it, and, men especially would hate it. I was really worried about advertising the show and being honest, or kind of like explicitly saying, I'm going to be talking about PMDD, which is a women's gynecological health condition, because I was worried people would be like, oh God, that's not for me. I don't want to come to that. Or like, oh
Yeah.
God, that's not funny, or that's not, oh, that doesn't sound like something I want to hear about. So I was a little bit veiled in what I kind of said about the show when I made Square Peg. And yeah, so I think sometimes people came and they didn't realize it was going to be about what it was about.
Mhm.
Um, but generally, I got some really amazing feedback, which yeah was surprising because yeah, I just didn't think that. You know, I knew I wanted people to hear it, and I knew that I wanted, you know, men especially to hear about it because actually they can be an incredibly useful tool. And not just men, but people that maybe don't experience PMDD
Yeah.
because they're looking at it from the outside. And actually, like for me personally, having somebody say to me, I've noticed a pattern in your behavior is what led me to getting a diagnosis. I think, you know, I haven't, really wouldn't have realized it at all. And like I'd been living with it for 13 years by the time I got diagnosed. And it took somebody else who wasn't me and who doesn't even get periods to say, oh, yeah, yeah, this is a pattern of behavior here, which is only relieved when you bleed. Like, do you think maybe you should get that checked out?
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think it's really important as well, and it's why it's so important to have allies and educate people that don't have it, because they're still impacted, because they'll know somebody that does, because it's such a common condition. And I think when we're experiencing PMDD, kind of what we touched on before, like it's hard to actually go, oh wait, yeah, no, there is a pattern to this, because you're
Mhm.
so focused on how you're feeling in that present moment that it's hard to you haven't got time to be thinking about patterns or anything like that. And you don't feel connected to the luteal you. So I think it's really important that these people can help guide you through and like kind of hold your hand and say, okay, I've noticed this and let's get you help. And they can't do that without knowing what PMDD is. That's why what you're doing is hugely important. So I love that.
Yeah.
Um, Here's a question. So I don't know how you possibly can stand on stage full stop. I could never. It could never be me. But have you ever had to perform whilst in the luteal phase? And if so, how?
Every month of my life. Half of my working calendar is in my luteal phase. Like as like we were saying before, like my luteal phase is like yours, it's 2 weeks, like 2 full weeks. And
Wow.
my symptoms start from ovulation. And so I sort of include that in it as well. And then as we know, it doesn't just instantly go when you start bleeding for everyone.
Yeah.
There's still, you know, I get a little bit of, you know, I've got a few days where I've got to kind of decompress from the, you know, I'm picking back up the pieces. So which is why I always say I have 1 week a month where I feel 100% myself, which I'm in
Wow.
right now, which is great.
Love that for you. Thank God.
But do you know what? I'm exhausted.
Because you're doing so much to make up for the lost time.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so I but yeah, I'm so aware of it now, and I know not everybody is able to do this, so I know I'm incredibly lucky. But, you know, but also I've made some quite big sacrifices in order to make my work for me. I do a variety of different things. So I do stand up, but I also teach dance to children, and I've just started doing coaching for PMDD sufferers. So I have a few clients at the moment who I work with who are who have PMDD, and I went to a PMDD coach when I first got diagnosed, and I found her so incredibly useful. Yeah, so I've started doing that as well. But all of these things do very much kind of have to fit around how I am feeling. Um, Stand up, I find actually incredibly easy to do when I'm in my luteal phase, um, because that's when I feel my best. Is when I'm on stage. That's when I feel my most kind of. I feel so powerful and I feel so great because it's something I love, and it's something that I can just switch off that bit of my brain because being on stage, I have to be so present. It just pushes everything else out. And if anything, when I'm actually in my luteal phase, I think I do some of my best work because
Wow.
I'm just like, don't care. I don't care. I do not care. I'm just like, oh well. And I already feel like in the depths of hell, what could be worse? Nothing. Nothing could
I
be
mean, that's
worse
a
than
very
it.
good point. A very good point, actually. Yeah. Wow, that's really, really powerful.
Yeah. So that's amazing. And I love doing that. And then all the other things I kind of do. Look, what I'll say, I do a lot of napping. I do so much napping. And I'm lucky I can do that because my schedule, I don't do a 9 to 5.
Mm.
I do a, you know, uh, all hours of the day, really, if we're being honest. Like, I'm always thinking of stuff, and but because my schedule is so flexible, I can just especially in my luteal phase, I don't not work. I work the whole way through, and like when I did the Fringe, I started and ended the Fringe in my luteal phase. But what I did around that was not a lot.
Mhm.
Um, I'm very much
And what would,
protecting my peace.
yeah. And how would you protect your peace then? How would you, so apart from napping, which I love, like, are there any key things that you do to, when you can feel your PMDD symptoms sort of rising, do to alleviate that?
Yeah, I do a lot less socializing, which isn't ideal, but I do have to spend a lot more time by myself. And if I am going to do socializing, I try and do it with people that I feel really comfortable with. So if
Mhm.
I'm going to see anyone during my luteal phase, it's people that I'm really comfortable with, that I know I can be myself with, that I don't have to put on a front for. Because when you're already in your luteal phase, you know, I'm masking at work already. I don't want to then mask around my friends or my family. Um, so I do that. And then also I find this, and this is something that this is something I've worked on a lot over the years, and something that, isn't doable for everybody for various reasons. But like, I make sure I'm very consistent with exercising, because that is something I know is really important for me and my mental health. Um, and I also try my absolute best to feed myself well. I have like quite a bad history for binging and restricting with food, and I didn't realize that that was actually um, linked to my PMDD. And now I find that I don't crave doing it as much anymore, but that's because I really make sure that I'm giving my body like everything that it needs, and like I'm eating enough. Because if I'm eating enough, I'm not going to binge, because I don't need to. I don't feel I still have the feeling of it sometimes, but like I have the desire to do it. But I've kind of got to a point where now, like, I know that actually the outcome isn't good for me, and it doesn't do what my brain hopes it's going to.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And you're right. I think that is it. There's a massive connection between, that way of thinking in terms of binge eating and restricting and PMDD, and perhaps understanding that you've got PMDD and understanding more about how PMDD impacts you has helped you to have that better relationship with food. Are there any myths maybe, because it's still a really misunderstood condition, and a condition that you hear things and you're like, that's just not accurate. Are there any myths or misunderstandings then that you hear and you just are so frustrated by?
Oh my gosh, all the time, every day, every single day of my life. I hate that people just think it's PMS. I have spoken to
Yes.
so many doctors and so many healthcare professionals that have kind of just lumped PMDD and PMS together as one thing, and I think it's really dangerous. And
100%.
yeah, I think it really it just minimizes people's experiences of PMDD. And I think, it will make people who are actually struggling second guess themselves and
Yeah,
maybe not ask for help. I always say to people, like, if I have a lot of people now that message me or I speak to that say, oh, I think, actually, God, that sounds exactly like what I'm feeling. If doing all of the things that we know are good for our mental health, like getting outside, exercising, eating well, sleeping enough, drinking enough water, um, if you're doing all of that and you still feel like, quite frankly, like you want to kill yourself, because like that, for me, that is one of my worst symptoms,
yeah,
is wanting to end my life. And I've always had that since I was a teenager. I just didn't quite realize that that was what it was. um if you're doing all of those good things that we know are good for your mental health, and you're still having this cycle of what seems like depression or anxiety or like that, then that isn't normal, and you
hmm
do need some kind of, medical intervention, quite honestly. um and that's okay, but it is also, that isn't normal. You shouldn't just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal.
yeah, 100%. And you are so right. Just going back to when you said it's really quite dangerous to compare it to PMS.
Yeah.
And I think medical professionals are doing, but that's just the lack of understanding, you know,
Yeah.
as a whole. But it is dangerous, and it does minimize the way people genuinely feel, because they're not the same. And one of them can be classed as a disability. It's a really, really awful condition that, like you said, can cause suicidal ideation. So yeah, I think if there's one thing that needs to be changed, it's most certainly that. And going back to sort of diagnosis as well, how have you had a diagnosis, and how has it changed things for you, both in your life and comedy as well?
Yeah, I got diagnosis in 2022, I think it was 2022.
Okay.
And I went through a gynecologist to get my diagnosis. I was very kind of fortunate. I was able to go private. And that was just because I'd just moved somewhere completely new. I didn't have a GP at the time. And honestly, I was pretty desperate, and like I was really struggling in a way that, um yeah, just was not livable. Like, it wasn't manageable for me. um I think for me, having a diagnosis has just made me take myself and my symptoms seriously, and knowing that that is something that I struggle with, and that there is an actual reason that this is how I show up to my life, gives me the power to advocate for myself. And I don't feel any kind of, I don't feel like, if other people just dismiss it, I'm like, oh well, that's on you, that's not on me. Like, because I know
Mm.
you don't have to live like this. Is my like, genuinely, this is my 24/7. This is my whole entire life. Is if every single day of my life is affected by this,
Mhm.
and it will be. It's been, it's been affected for the last 17 years, and it will be for probably at least another 17. That is a really long time.
Yeah,
It affects every aspect of my life, and I know that there is a reason for it. It just, yeah, it makes me feel so validated, especially for something that is so misunderstood, underdiagnosed, and we don't really have huge amounts of information about.
exactly. And and I'm really glad that you've managed to get that diagnosis, because I know that it can be really challenging to get that in the first
Yeah.
place, and I'm sure you had your challenges with that as well. For someone who is really struggling with PMDD and just feels like no one understands, and maybe even they don't really understand it either, what's one piece of advice that you would give someone?
Keep a diary, like, keep a diary of your symptoms, and be so brutally honest about how you're feeling and about what symptoms you are experiencing. And even if it's not like a physical, if you're not writing it down, like, get a period tracking app. There's so many free ones. My favorite one is Stardust, um,
Ooh.
because it is not. I don't know. I just like it, and it's not like it uses nice language, and it doesn't have kind of, yeah. I just think it's fun, and it's a little bit. it's a bit quirky. Like, it's like they say
We love that.
hilarious stuff, you know? I get
Love
little
that.
notifications every day, like, oh, today you're probably gonna punch someone in the face. I'm like, yeah, I am actually.
Oh, love that.
It's just kind of fun. I like it. It's a fun one, and you can track all your symptoms in that, and it also tells you exactly where on your cycle you are. So it tells you kind of like, oh, it looks like you're ovulating, or you're this, or you're in your follicular, and there's like a little section that you can add kind of symptoms in, but you can like write stuff in it as well, I think. And being able to harness that information and have that as a concrete evidence that what you are experiencing is cyclical, and that there is a pattern. Taking that to a doctor
Mm.
is going to be so much more powerful if you can say, look, can you see how here I'm wanting to end my life, and then here I'm fine? Because doctors or GPs already don't have huge amounts of knowledge of PMDD. I can't tell you the number of times I've been told it's anxiety, it's depression. We're gonna get you to see the psych team. Only for me to say, I don't need to. I don't need to see them because I already have a diagnosis. You don't need to tell me what, because I already know. So if you can, as much as shouldn't be our job to go in already with the facts, but if you can already have like a body of evidence to go in and show that what you're experiencing does happen in a cycle that coincides with your menstrual cycle,
Mm.
that is one of the key indicators that it is PMDD, and that it isn't, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, um, two of the very common things that people get misdiagnosed with instead
Yeah.
of PMDD. And also, it can show like the severity of what you've been experiencing, because you never know when you go into your appointment. You might be in your follicular phase, you might feel fine. So if you're going in, then they're like, oh, you seem fine. If you've got this, a long history of evidence, that's going to make it a lot easier for them to rule out other things, and hopefully look to PMDD being the cause.
Yeah. I think that's bang on advice. I would always recommend that people track their cycle, because the more information you've got, the more likely you're going to get the support that you need, because if all the arrows are pointing in the direction of PMDD based on the evidence that you're giving them, then you're going to get that diagnosis quicker, aren't you? So I think
Yeah.
it's an amazing piece of advice. But then not just that, I think also it prepares you for you know, it prepares you for the luteal phase,
Yeah.
because, if you are tracking your cycles and you're so in tune with what's going to happen every single month. Like, I know my cycle like the back of my hand, and it actually allows me to plan my professional life, plan my social life. It just allows me to have a bit more control over, you know, something that I can't control. So,
Absolutely, 100%. I'm the exact same. I do track my cycle now, but I don't need to. I am the tracker,
yeah,
like, I know. I can tell you I know every single thing about my cycle, like all of the symptoms, everything. I know exactly what day of my cycle I'm on at any given time. And it feels almost comforting
mm,
now to me to know where I'm at. And yeah, you're right. Like, it does give you a bit of control over something that you can't control,
yeah,
because I can't control the fact it's happening to me, but I can control how I react to it and what I do.
exactly.
I can control what I do. I can control what situations I put myself in. And also, I'm finding it really kind of important for me, especially at this point in my life where, you know, I am, a fully grown adult, and I'm, a professional working person and I'm, doing whatever, like just to take responsibility for my own life and my own health. And because, as we said before, my PMDD doesn't just affect me, it affects everybody that comes into contact with me and everybody in my life, everybody in my close circle, my PMDD affects.
Yeah,
And
I think, yeah, you're so right. It does. And it goes back to sort of how that awareness piece needs to be there for everybody, not just us guys.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think you're so right with that. Um, and yeah, so and you've mentioned tracking, which is a great piece of advice. You've mentioned the importance of napping, which is just, I could not stress that
that
enough.
saves
I'm
lives,
the queen of, they really do. I'm the queen of napping. So good at them. Are there any other like PMDD friendly self-care rituals that you'd actually recommend for when things get really bad?
Okay, so my sort of relationship with self-care is quite, I would say, I have a difficult relationship with self-care. And because I find the Instagramification of self-care very difficult to get on board with. Because for me personally, self-care is keeping myself alive. That is for me, the basics of self-care is making sure that I am still here.
Mhm.
So for me, like self-care for me is making sure that I do get enough sleep, that I do take some time offline, um, stop, you don't, even though all I want to do is just lie in a pit of my own sort of despair and just like scroll online for ages and ages and ages and ages. That is not good for me. And already when you're feeling like really low, don't be then looking at curated snapshots of people's lives. Because actually,
Yeah.
if people looked at my social media, they probably wouldn't know that I'm in like XYZ of my cycle because I don't share every single aspect of how I'm feeling because I don't want to.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, making sure that like I take antidepressants for my PMDD as part of my kind of medication plan or whatever you want to call it. Making sure I take those. Yeah, for me, like it's just I think really going back to like the basics of looking after myself and treating myself how I would treat somebody else
Yeah.
in this scenario. Like if one of my friends or my family or my partner felt like this, I wouldn't say, "Oh my god, like do you really need to like not go outside? Do you really need to, have a sleep again?" Like, or like, "Oh, I can't believe you're making such a fuss about this," or "Oh my god, just cheer up." But I wouldn't say any of these things to them. I would take how they're feeling seriously and because I care about them. And so I really try and treat myself as that, as an external, like as another person. I'm like, how would I treat if Bella was this person over here that I cared about that wasn't me? How would I, what would I do for them? How would I support them? And I try my best to treat myself
I
like
love that. I think I'm so glad you've said that. And it's so important because I'm actually guilty for, when you're feeling, well, in your luteal phase, you're feeling awful and then you're doom scrolling on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, and you're seeing all these self-care days and self-care rituals and really that, that actually makes things worse because you're like, well, I'm not doing that, so therefore maybe I'm not feeling great, and that's probably why I'm not feeling great. But really, it goes down to the basics. Am I sleeping enough? Probably not. Am I eating the right things? Probably not. Do I just need to stay in bed for today? Yeah, probably. And that's okay. It doesn't need to be this glamorized way of looking after yourself. It just needs to be meeting the basics. I think that's
yeah,
so important that you've said that.
because that is just looking at what do we actually need,
Yeah.
and it's making sure I'm kind of reaching out to people if I want to, if there's if I'm feeling terrible and I want to reach out to someone, like if I do need human connection, like reach out to people rather than
Mm.
just being like, because that then feeds into my, if I don't reach out to them, it feeds into my, oh my God, nobody likes me. I'm the worst. No, I deserve to be left alone forever. But actually, if people don't know that I'm struggling, then how would they know to ask if I'm okay? And but then conversely to that, like if I don't want to speak to anyone, I don't make myself feel bad for just being like, okay, well, the next few days, I'm just going to do the things I have to do. Like,
To
I've got
get
this
through.
gig, I've got this, I've got this, I've got to do this. Other than that, I'm not doing anything. Um, because I don't want to, and I don't have the bandwidth. Like, me doing the things I have to do, that's me at 100%. That's me
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Bang on. Bang on, honestly. I think that's so important and a really nice way to sort of like end this call. Really good, great pieces of advice there. Finally, before we do go, I'd love to know a little bit more about what you've got planned for this year in terms of your career. Where can we see you going next? How can we sort of keep an eye on the work that you're doing?
Oh, well, you can maybe just follow me on Instagram, to be honest. That is where I share all of my things. I'm at hella.bumphreys, which is my name, but with the two first letters round the other way. That's where I share most of my things. I've been taking my show around the UK, which is exciting. I'm not sure if we've got too many left, but I've definitely got one in Bristol at the Alma Theatre in July, which is exciting. And I'm hoping to get it filmed so that I can put it online for people to see if they haven't been able to come and see it in person. And so once I've sort of done all of that, I'll be kind of sharing that so people can see it if they would like to. Um, and then other sort of project wise, I'm kind of just not sure yet, really. I'm going to start writing a new show, which
Wow.
won't be about PMDD, but it will still be, I think it will still have some elements of, I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be about, but I think I would like to kind of use what I've made before as like a springboard to talk about maybe something else that's related.
Mm.
Because I had such a lovely response from the other projects I've done that have talked about that. And also, it's something I really care about. And I found that that's how I make the best work is by talking about things I really care about.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see where you go this year and for the future. But for now, just thank you so, so much for and it's been an amazing call. It's been so good to sort of hear more about your insights, your advice. Yeah, just thank you so much for joining us.
Oh no, thank you. Thank you for having me. And also just as just like a caveat to all of this, I still don't get it right all the time. And I still don't know what I'm doing. And I still have so many days where all I wish is that this wasn't my life. So if you're kind of newer to having PMDD or it's something you're just discovering, don't think that like I haven't got it all figured out. That it's
Hmm.
still like, it is still, I don't know, I'm finding it an ever evolving journey and process.
So get that, yeah. And that's refreshing to hear as well. It's not figured out just yet, but
Oh no.
by the sounds of it, you definitely recognize what triggers you, what triggers the PMDD, what helps you. And that's, I think, the first step in, supporting your own condition. And that's
Oh,
amazing.
absolutely, yeah. I'm much better at it now, and I think I'm just, I'm trying my absolute best, and I think that's all we can really do.
Yeah, and I think you're being a massive advocate for the condition as well. The fact that you're going out there and talking about the condition and talking about it in a really unique way as well, using comedy to talk about it. I can't even tell you how many people I know you'll be making a difference with. So yeah, just thank you for everything that you do.
Oh no, it's amazing, and yeah, honestly, just you trying to stop me talking about it, because yeah, it's one of the greatest joys of my life, being able
Oh,
to,
wow.
being able to talk about it, because it is such a menace.
Yes, it truly is. It truly, truly is. No, thank you so much, Bella. And yeah, we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.